everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. This is a weekly webinar that encourages photographers from all over the world to connect, inspire, and create. My guests share tips, techniques, the stories behind their photographs, and they inspire us to learn and improve our own photography skills. The schedule for upcoming presentations is on my website at lindanickell.com. And if you haven't subscribed to the Happiness Hour YouTube channel, please check it out for sessions that you may have missed. Tonight's guest is Chelsie Xavier-Blower. Chelsie is an adventure and environmental cinematographer and video editor based in Vancouver, British Columbia. Her assignments have taken her to remote corners of the world to film natural history and conservation stories for CBC film crews and National Geographic photographers. As a freelancer, her assignments range from conservation stories and campaigns to adventure short films. If you're on Instagram, you can find Chelsie at Chelsie_X_B. And you can connect with her through her website at chelsiexb.com. And I will link those in the show notes below. In tonight's presentation, From Photos to Motion, Essential Tips for Videography, Chelsie will talk about the fundamentals of videography, the basic equipment you need, camera techniques, and composition principles for capturing breathtaking visuals. Welcome to the Happiness Hour, Chelsie.
Oh, that was so eloquent. You're gonna go from that video thing to just me speaking gibberish.
No, I'll fake it till we make it. So let's do some disclaimers. All right. One of the things that I love to do is to tell people how I meet photographers and the people I have on the Happiness Hour as guest speakers. Some people I do not know from Adam, and I send a note and say, hey, my name's Linda, and this is what I do. Would you be willing to come and do a presentation for the group? A lot of people say yes. So you are 160 of the presentations that we've done. So no pressure. But Chelsie came to me through a friend. Her name's Karen Cooper. Karen was somebody that I was introduced to via Instagram. And Karen and I have had a longstanding WhatsApp and sometimes telephone conversations. And in a conversation, she said, I've got to introduce you to Chelsie, and Chelsie this and Chelsie that. And you're just going to love her. And of course, I go to her website and I go to her Instagram and like, I love her so much. I want her to do a speaking presentation. And so we did get on a call with Karen just to chat and get to know each other. And I don't know if I like leaped at you right at that call or another one, but somehow I managed to wrangle you here. So you're going to put your nervous jitters aside. Yeah. Going to blow us away. So one of the things I didn't say about Chelsie is, we hinted at this, we put it in her bio, but she has a lot of experience with working with some of the top well-recognized names in National Geographic. So she may sit behind a computer and do her magic, but her magic has reached a lot of people. And so she's going to not brag about it, but go look her up, look up her credits. So, all right, with that, Chelsie, it's all you.
All right. Okay, here we go.
All right.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, Linda. That was lovely. Yeah, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about video because a lot of the times people come to me and they're like, I did photo and I have so much video. I don't know what to do with it. It's very intimidating. And I wanted to kind of create something that shows that it's not as scary as it seems. There's a lot of crossover. And yeah, I do specialize in storytelling through video, but I figured there's kind of no point in getting to that stage yet if you don't really know if you're too scared to even delve into video. So I thought first, I'm just going to talk really briefly about a little bit of equipment and a little bit of techniques, and then we're going to dive right into like editing or kind of show you my workflow of editing. I'm sorry if this is like it's kind of hard to find the balance of like what like beginning to like intermediate. And so there might be things in here that you're very comfortable in, that you know, and there might be stuff that is new. So hopefully everyone can learn something from this. Yeah, so this is me. I don't know, I thought I needed a photo in there. This is me on a recent trip shooting Jaggers for a production company. As Linda did say, I do camera assisting for production companies. I previously was an editor for SeaLagacy and Paul Nicklen and Cristina Mittermeier. That's mostly where she was telling you the audience that watched my video used to be there. And then now I'm a freelancer, and so I do my own things, and I work for different companies and different organizations, and it's pretty cool because I get to work with a lot of cool people, including this job. So yeah, we're just gonna start going. Okay, so I want to start off with equipment because I'm assuming that everyone that thinks about video are like, okay, I gotta go get like the best video stuff out there. I gotta go like get the new stuff. And truly, for the most part, like unless this is gonna become your profession or your hobby, like your most extreme thing, like you do not need to go out of your way to go get equipment. What you have, your stills camera, is probably perfectly fine. Yes, you hear a lot of talk about 4K and like high resolution and blah, blah, blah with everything. And yeah, that is true. It is a common thing now. It is becoming more and more, but generally, like if your camera doesn't do that and you're like, okay, I need to go start doing this, it doesn't matter, because most of the programs we use today where our videos get shown, Instagram, YouTube, if you have a 4K video, they will usually compress it for you because they kind of assume that their audience is going to be able to have the means and have the equipment to watch it in 4K. And so they reduce it, they compress it to 1080. So unless you're already at a position where you're like, actually, I'm going to upgrade my stills camera, then yeah, sure. Maybe you can look at some cameras that have the ability to shoot video and shoot those 4K, because maybe one day the technology will get there that we have. But right now, I wouldn't go out of your way quickly to go get these 4K big high things. That's just the one note I wanted to say. And I know like the classic saying of like, you know, your best tool is what you have. And yes, that is true. And yes, it's also true that there's a lot of expensive gear that do a lot of cool stuff. But for the most part, for what you're doing, especially if you're like kind of a novice, if you just want to try out video before you invest a lot of money, because believe me, it is expensive, just use what you have for now. So a few things to keep in mind when you're shooting. And I kind of want to talk about like just a little bit of differences between stills and video. Again, sorry, this is really basic, but the most important thing that I think you have to really think about, and this will come up again, hopefully as well when I'm editing, is you have to really think about like, who is it for and where is it going? And this is basically like, am I going to make a video for my recent trip that's for my friends and my family? I'm going to just post it to them. Then sure, if they're in it, they're going to be more willing to sit down and spend 10 minutes watching a video. If you're like, I'm going to make this big, massive video and I'm going to share it everywhere and then get sad that no one's watching it, no one's going to have time to watch your 10-minute video that they're not in and they don't really know about. And so you have to kind of play in mind as to like, okay, if you want to make a reel, I got to grab people's more attention. And this also comes into play of like what your settings are going to be. It's the same kind of thing I was talking about before of like 1080 and 4K. Like it's great if you have the cameras to shoot in 4K, but if you're like making a story for Instagram, it doesn't matter that you're shooting that because it's going to be compressed anyway. So along those lines, I'm sure all of you have heard about frame rates, and this alone as well. Most of these topics that I'm covering alone can be discussed like in a day. So I'm going to be so brief about some of these things because there's so much to talk about. But basically your frame rate is just the rate that your camera is picturing or capturing the motion. And people usually, their norm is 24 to 30 because that's what your eyes are that's what we see. That's what we see in normally. So all your movies that are pretty much out there are all shot in 24 to 30 frames a second because that's what you naturally see. And the higher you go, the more when this comes to be beneficial is if you're like what you're using with that footage. So again, where's it going? And what are you going to use it for? So the higher the frame rate, the more ability you have to slow down your footage afterwards. So Linda, you're asking me about this beautiful slow motion because they usually probably shoot at a higher frame rate so that they can then slow it down. So this is where you want, when you have like big, beautiful bear running through the water, if you can capture a higher frame rate so that you can slow it down, it's going to look nicer. It's going to be less compressed. You're going to have more frames in there for it to slow it down to. But that being said, it doesn't mean you should always shoot 120 because your camera can do it. And it doesn't mean because the higher the frame rate, the bigger your file is going to be, the more storage you're going to need. And believe me, video eats away your storage very quickly, the higher you shoot, especially. So if you're just like on a boat going through landscape, you don't need to shoot that in 120. You can shoot that in lower and it's going to be perfectly fine. Your shutter speed. So in photography, you can change that a lot, obviously, to determine motion and to help with exposure. In videography, that usually stays at a number and don't touch it after that. And that number is usually double your frame rate. So if you're at 24, 1/48 or 1/50, 30 frames a second, 1/60. This is also to do with like how your eyes kind of look at things. And if you notice, like when it's super, super high frame, you can kind of like begin to see the little jittery, and that's just like, yeah, your mind's kind of way of like trying to process all those filters, all those frames. A lot of like video games have really high frame rate. And so people that play video games, i.e. my partner, finds it hard to look at things that aren't that. So anyway, but so your frame rate and your shutter speed, this is kind of a general rule for it. Some things that generally stay the same. So your eye, I mean, again, the higher we get, the more we get talking about the bigger cameras that you use, ISO becomes more complicated. But for the most part, for the most cameras that are around, ISO is pretty much the same principles in photography. You kind of keep it lower to kind of adjust your noise, but it also becomes very noisy. Your depth of field and aperture, also the same principle. However, a tip for when you're using especially a low aperture is try and, if you can, focus manually when you're shooting, because you probably noticed in some videos, sometimes you can, if you're in automatic, you can see the camera trying to like find that focus, and it's just very distracting when you're watching it to just find that. And so focusing manually, especially in a lower aperture, is quite hard. It takes a lot of time to practice. It's like a practice like anything, you have to practice it to gain those skills. But it's often, you know, even if you do miss the focus slightly, you're like, your subject is in front of you and they're moving a little bit and it comes in and out of focus. It's not as jarring, I find, as the automatic jitter. In saying that, though, there are a lot of cameras these days where the automatic focus is getting better and better. And so this is also camera dependent, and hopefully one day you can just rely on it. But for now, it's a good tool, a good thing to practice is to try and do it manually. And again, your composition, I mean, it's the same kind of rules, pretty much. Like, you know, once you know the rules of photography, you can break them. It's really similar in videography. And this is like where your like expression comes up, like shooting your style, and also editing is also where your artistic style will come out. There's some little tips when you're shooting, and a lot of people are like, oh my God, I need to go get a really expensive gimbal now because I'm shooting video. And yeah, there are some good gimbals out there. There's some good stabilizers. And if you can afford it, if you practice video and you're like, yep, I really want to get better and more stable, then sure, you can go spend the money on your stabilizers. But for those of you who are on a low budget, I feel you. And a tip that I always do, if I'm hand-holding a camera or filming, is to use your strap. So just like pull at a max so it's like nice and steady, and it just gives like another axis for it to not be so shaky on. That's just a little tip. And just like you would shoot photos, always shoot raw. It just it allows the image to kind of hold more of its kind of end of the histogram, so it can maintain more data and doesn't clip as much. And especially like Mavic, so if people who fly drones, I personally hate the saturation and the contrast they put on their natural kind of JPEG equivalent to video. So I usually shoot always in RAW, and it's going to look terrible. It's going to look awful. But you can get all those colors back and more in post. And then this is also a concern, or like where, not a concern, but something to keep in mind is color correcting itself is very time consuming and it's very hard. People do it as a whole profession. And so if you have the ability to then color correct your stuff, or like if you have time, then sure, shoot like everything raw. But again, depending on if you have this time and depending on what camera you're using, if you are happy with the style of your what your camera shoots, then you can consider shooting it naturally versus the raw. But yeah, that's like dependent on your style and your likes. Okay, so this is where it starts. This is my workflow. So basically I have all this footage that I've shot. What the heck do I do with it? And in the same way you would organize your photos, organize your videos. It's just nice to keep everything organized and simple and know where things are. And this is basically what I kind of, I can't even show my mess. But so my Zcam is just my camera that I have. And I like to organize it by year and then by date and what it was, as you can see here, just a little herring spawn thing. Some cameras, as most of you may already know too, is they don't create a unique name for their files. And this is important because they need to be unique, because when you are like opening and transferring files, this can create errors. If it's the same, it's like the computers freak out and they don't know what you're referring to. So you can lose data, you can create errors within the data. So always, if it's like not a unique name, and what I mean like unique, it's like, you know, if you reset a card and it goes back to 001 and everything's called that, try and rename your stuff. And I do the same thing that I do with my photos pretty much for the most part. I just go to Lightroom. When I import all my stuff, I'll like include the video that I have in there and rename it to whatever setting I'm using in Lightroom. And then once I'm out of there, I'll just get my videos and then put them in a separate kind of catalog. So I have my stills and then my video. My video is like organized in this way. So it's just nice to keep things nice and neat and tidy, the same way you would do your stills catalog. Okay, so editing. Today I'm going to be using Premiere Pro for two reasons. One, it's what I was taught on. It's what I know. I know to fit around with it quicker. This is not to say that it is the best program to use. It's not the program that you should be using. There are so many out there that do a range of things, or really expensive ones, really cheap ones. And again, unless you want to do this as a profession, I would just start with whatever is most available to you and what you can afford. Premiere Pro is kind of easy to do if you're already involved in the Adobe world. So like Lightroom and Photoshop. It's not cheap though. So there are like different options to look into too. DaVinci Resolve is supposed to be a really good one, and I'm honestly probably considering transferring to just completely using. I've heard really good things about it. But yeah, if you have any of these, and there's a lot more that I haven't even listed, the principles and like the style of editing I do, like doesn't like, I don't need really, really fancy tools for the most part. And so what you're doing, and what a lot of things you can see on YouTube and Reels, like you don't need really fancy things to do any of those videos. So I wouldn't worry about too much about the program. And this is also like what I'm showing you. I'll try and like kind of talk about things and show you where things are and show you what cool settings there are. But again, like all these programs pretty much have a lot of, if not all of the things that I'm going to be showing you. And it's just a matter of knowing where it is. And yeah, if you get really lost, please don't be scared. You can also like kind of YouTube like the basics of these programs, and yeah. But I'm hoping that you can follow along. And if I am speaking really fast or going too fast, Linda, you can shut me up and tell me to slow down.
I'll be gentle.
Okay, so my editing steps, I'm just going to quickly go through them. This is like kind of my workflow of when I edit. So either when people give me a bunch of footage or when I come back from something, this is the order of stuff that I do things in. So first I'm going to scrub everything. So this is exactly where you're kind of looking at the footage that, you know, looking for the good shots, the great shots, like just get rid of the things you don't even need to look at. It's also great to start getting a sense of what you have, so you can start building the things in your mind of whatever you want to make with it or what project you're working on. I also go through the videos or the interviews with people. So just the things in the stars is what I'm going to be talking and trying to show you today. The other stuff is like what I would do like for a client or something, or how I'm creating the story stuff. But again, this can be a million hours long talking about these stuff, so I won't have time to do it today. But anyway, so I scrub it, I look through it. And then the next process I would do is usually storyboard. So this is basically grabbing all my sound bites, all my like stuff from my footage, and kind of creating the story that I want to actually use. I'm not a huge fan of using text in video. I just personally find it a little bit distracting. So whenever I can, I will try to create my story using the footage and using the sound. But obviously with a lot of incidences and people that I work with, they don't have the resources or time to get nice interviews. So you do have to kind of substitute using text to kind of fill in the gaps. But for the most part, I love to kind of stay clear of text. I just find it a little bit distracting. Then after that, I will find my music. There are a lot of resources online where you can get kind of royalty-free music. Again, this comes into the question of where is it going? What's it for? If it's just for your friends and family and it's like an internal link, you know, you can make it and put it on Google Drive, whatever. You can use whatever song you want. Obviously, YouTube is a little bit strict now for what songs you use. They sometimes take it down if they don't have rights for it. So just be aware of that if you are posting on YouTube. I get my music from a subscription thing. I pay like a yearly fee, and it's all royalty-free music. It's called Artlist. I can write that down later if anyone's interested. It's just a great way to look for music, and it's by a lot of cool artists, and you get a range of music that you can filter based on what you want to create and the kind of style and the feeling you create from the video. So after that, I found my music, and it's great because you can start to, when you're looking for songs, because you've looked at all the footage, you can start to visualize like where certain clips can go, and it's kind of fun. Once that's done, a lot of the times the music is very long, or it's too long for what the time frame I have. So I like to DJ it up, and I like to like make it shorter. I know it's fun little process. And then once that's done, I'll get my long storyboard that I've kind of have, and I'll kind of condense it to kind of fit my music, to kind of build like kind of tension or build certain sections of the song, of the footage and the story with the sound bites that I have. Then I'll add some footage, which we'll go through. I'll do a color correct. The one I'm showing you today is very quick because it usually takes like a day to color correct properly. And then I'll use a little tool that I like a lot called warp stabilizer. So a lot of the times, if you are hand holding it like me, there's a lot of times where you do have a little bit of motion and shake, and sometimes warp stabilizer is amazing. It can fix it instantly. Other times it does not work, but hopefully the clips today work. And then after that, I'll adjust my audio levels. So any interviews, I'll like kind of make it all nice and even. I'll add sound effects. You could be amazed at how much sound effects can kind of change a video. That being said, you'll be amazed at the amount of times that people make them too loud or too distracting. So it's kind of nice to bearing that in mind, and also play your videos always when you're done with them on different devices. Usually I find that when I'm editing on my computer and I export it, it sounds great. I'll play it on my phone and it sounds awful. So just keep that in mind, just to give a little bit of practices of what you're gonna post it to. Okay, let's dive in. This is where the fun part starts, and the part that I'm nervous about, but anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna open Premiere Pro, and it looks almost like this when you start to open it, but it's not quite the same because I've already opened it for you, because it can take a while to open. But the basics are the same. I'm going to import it. Let me make this bigger. Okay, there you go. So I'm importing, you're editing, you're exporting. So in my import, sorry, I'm not importing anything. Give me 2 seconds. Pretend that, close your eyes. You're not looking at anything. You're not looking at anything. Okay. Brand new. This is what it looks like. I'm going to create my project name, where it's going. On the side here, you'll see different settings, but we're not really going to mess with those. I don't usually mess with those. And so I'm going to call this happy. There you go. We'll call it happy because we're happy. Okay, so I got that. It's going to my desktop. I'm going to create it. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you enter it. Looks scary. I promise you it's not. Premiere Pro is an awesome tool once you get used to it. With that said, it crashes very often, which is a problem that a lot of people have with Premiere and why they're beginning to move to other programs. But it's very user-friendly, although it doesn't really look like it. But yeah, it's good. I like it. Okay, so here we have our project area, and this will make a lot more sense when I start to actually do stuff in this program. Here's a little timeline, and then these two things you'll see in a minute. So first of all, I'm here. I'm going to do the exact same thing that I do outside of this, is I'm going to organize my situation. So I'm going to import all my kind of stuff that I'm going to create, and then I'm going to go from there. So to do this, we're going to create little bins. So this is a new bin, and we're just going to basically call it what camera I am going to be importing. So this is my Zcam. So my Zcam is just a personal camera that I have. And then I'm going to do one for iPhone, and I'm going to do one for drone, for example. Okay, so then once I'm here, I'm going to import my stuff. This is just some of the stuff that I have. I'm just going to do a little bit because it sometimes can take a little bit longer to import it. So let's pretend that that's all of it. Okay, so this video, basically this footage is just stuff that I have from Thailand. I wanted to use some shots and some videos of some BTS with the shoots that I'm on, but because they're not posted yet, I can't actually use them. So this is just literally some random footage that I have from a trip in Thailand I did during the COVID or during the pandemic. So don't judge me, please, on these. Anyway. Okay.
Let me just say this. She was really worried that we're going to judge her by the videos that she's about to show. She was talking really fast. So I'm going to say some of the videos that she produces or works on, she can't show them here because either they haven't been released yet or just for the rights. So that's
and why. Even then, like the stuff that I have. So like basically I was like, okay, I might just like show you how you would make a little video of a trip that you went on. Since if you go on photo trips, you have all this video, I'm going to make some for my friends and family. So that was kind of the idea that I was going to go with this. And the stuff that I do have of that, the little BTS is just with previous that just haven't been released yet. 2025, and then I'll release them. But okay, so back to like my editing. So now I have my shots, my clips. And if I double click on it, those images will be here. But this is being funky on me, as you can see. Hello, Premiere. Beautiful. Anyway, this is a clip. Oops, a daisy. Okay, there we go. So basically now the process is I'm going to go through all my stuff, and now I'm going to go through the good and the bad and the ugly. And right now, I'm not necessarily judging what they are. I'm just looking for shots. So I'm taking away, I'm not even paying attention to any, like really obviously like I filmed, I put my camera on and I forgot about it. And now it's filming everything. Like that's obviously not necessary. So to do that, I'm just there's multiple ways to create sequences. So sequences are basically where we create our stuff. This way that I'm about to show you is only recommended when you're scrubbing, and I'll explain to you why. So basically we just grab a clip, we pop it here, and it creates a nice little timeline or sequence. I'm just going to delete that shot, and then I'm going to rename it to what we're actually going to be doing right now. So I'm just going to do a Zcam scrub. So I like to organize my scrubs based on a camera first, and so this is why this is a good way to create a sequence like this, is because it's maintaining the settings of what the clip is. So it's not compressing, it's not changing anything. It's just, this is what it is. This is just a nice way to start looking through stuff. I don't like the way this is behaving right now because I can't see it. Anyway, we're going to pretend that it's not a thing. Okay. Anyway, okay. So now, I don't even know if this is going to work because it's not showing me. I think I need to show Linda. Okay. Maybe if I get out of this for a second. Okay, I'm just going to move on, pretend that it's going to show you. So this right here looks a little bit funky right now, but usually you would just see a little like timeline as well as to where I am in the clip. And so now I'm just going to start by going through it. So I'm playing it. What is going on? This is what I mean by Premiere. This is a good example because it's crashes on me. I also I've had it open for a while, so I'm hoping it's not because of that. Anyway, so I'm going through. Okay, I don't really like this. It's not really much happening. A lot of this is shot in slow motion. I'm just gonna try and fast forward it a little bit. And then once I see a shot, pretend that I see a shot. Just gonna get on this in a minute. Okay, that's a cool shot. There you go. So I'm gonna mark it. So you can't see it right now, but this is a mark in. So it just tells it where I want the clip to start. And then I'm gonna play. And it's gonna move along to the shot that I want. Let's pretend, okay, so that's the end of the shot, but let's pretend it's that. Then I'm gonna mark out, which is right here. So it tells it's where, and then I'm gonna basically insert it onto my timeline. So insert it is just my keyboard shortcut is 9. And to change all your keyboard shortcuts, again, this is where I kind of need to, I can spend a while doing this, but you just go into your keyboard shortcuts and here you can change everything you like. So basically my standard is I mark in and I mark out, and then 9, I just insert just because it's nice and close to that. Okay, cool. So I've done this to my whole clip. I'm looking at more shots. Let's pretend that I have it all kind of nice and tidy. It's not even working right now. Oh my goodness. I'm going to try and exit this. Okay, moving on. So basically right now I'm going through all my shots. I'm looking at the things that I have. I'm marking it in, I'm marking it out. I'm putting it on my timeline. I'm not judging what I'm looking at yet. I'm just simply getting every kind of shot and every shot that I can see that can maybe work in a video, and I'm putting it in there. And the reason why I'm not judging, or I'm not only getting my good ones, is because, again, you don't know when you're going to be using that footage and what it's going to be for necessarily. And a lot of the time, a shot that's not like epic, just simple like transition or a simple motion shot can be used in a sequence and can be used as like a filler, if that kind of makes sense. So that's why I'm not necessarily judging right now, because I'm not sure if I'm going to need any kind of those fillers for my videos. Okay, so once I have that done, I'm going to have something that looks like this, and I'm going to quickly show you because I already have it done, and hopefully it will do. Okay, so this is what it basically looks like. So I have all this, and now, because it's not working, I can't show you, but I'll explain it to you. So when I am going through my stuff, I basically use a tier system. So I use these are like any kind of shots. I use like good shots and then great shots. So I 1, 2, 3. When you're done that, when you're done moving them around up and down, it's going to look something like this. And after this is done, again, I like to make it nice and organized and easy for me to look at. So basically, I would create a little section where I have all my 1s, all my 2s, and all my 3s. So that when I'm making a video, I can just go back and I can just go look at the best ones that I have, the medium ones, etc. So to do this, I'll select all my 1s. I'm going to copy them, more like Alt. I think on a Mac, it's just Option. On a Windows, it's Alt. And I'll just hold it. And then I move it along my timeline, let go. And so now I have all my 1s here. Right now, I can just easily go in and like kind of get rid of those gaps. But when you have giant timelines and a million gaps, that's going to take a lot of time. So a little shortcut that I do, it's called an adjustment layer. And also one thing to add is there are so many ways to do different things in the same program. And this is just the way that I was taught. It is not the way to do it. And if you know of a better way, please tell me. Like, I'd love to learn more things. It's just the way that I was taught. So I go to new item, and then I'm going to create an adjustment layer. Press OK. I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to put it on top right there of my shots. I'm going to make it nice and long so it covers all of it. And then I'm going to grab all of my shots, my things, my clips. I'm going to move them up. I'm going to move them down. And then I'm going to select all the pink ones again. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to ripple delete. And that will get rid of all those black spots. And this is a kind of neat tool when you have so many footage and you don't want to kind of go in manually and click delete, delete, delete. Anyway, so I'm going to do that for all my other ones. I'm going to try and do that really. So now I'm going to kind of really do a little bit quickly so I can not run out of time to do this. These ones I'm just going to quickly delete because it's not going to take you too long. And I'm going to get my 3s. Okay, so now I have my 1s, my 2s, and my 3s. The same way that I would mark everything else, I'm going to just make it nice and clean. So right now I'm just going to create a marker. So you can just, you can add markers. So where did it go? Add marker, or M for me. And double click it. I'm going to call it 1. I'm going to make it nice and long. I'm going to make it red so I know these are like my not so good ones. And I'm going to just do it all along. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to call these the 2s. I'm going to make them a bit longer. And then I'm going to do it one more time with my 3s. Whoops, daisy. 3s. Okay, and this is just a nice way to have all your scrubs and all your footage nice and neatly organized. So when you start transferring it, it's super easy. You know where your stuff is, just nice and organized. Again, organization is key to video editing, honestly, because it makes it clean, especially when you're sharing this kind of stuff with projects. It's nice that everyone kind of can look at it, open it, and know exactly what's happening. Okay, so I've done all this. I've used all my footage. This is my complete one. There you go. Now I've done this with all my other stuff. So I also had some iPhone stuff that I'm looking at, and some drones. So we'll go back over here and open the drone. And so now it's the kind of the footage stage. So I'm going to transfer all my footage onto a timeline and start making a video. So I've also just found a song already on Artlist. I'm just going to pop it in. Here it is, which you will see. So when we're looking at, I'm sorry, I created the wrong one. Sorry, I'm going to go back a second, Linda. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so remember when I said that there's different ways to create a sequence, and the other way is only for this one. So this is the other way to make a sequence. And so now we're going to make the sequence that we're going to create a video on, and that we're going to export it. So this sequence is going to have the same settings of what I want to export it as. So this is where I'm like, I'm going to export it in 1080 because it's going to be for YouTube. So I'm going to create a new sequence. It lets me. And so here you have kind of presets that already exists, and they're basically based on camera. The one I usually go to is just a simple DSLR 1080, and I'm going to call it draft, but I already have one called that, so I'm going to make another one. Draft presentation. Okay. And then we have some settings. And so here is like the more advanced area. So this is where you would go to change more of the stuff. But for now, we simply just need this one. Yeah. And so basically now, if I add a shot in here, which you're about to see, I'm going to do it to show you. And I'll show you what I just did there too in a minute. But when I add a shot, there we go. Oh my God, stop it. This is where it's being such a long shit. When I'm adding a shot there. So now it's asking me if I want to change the sequence settings, and I don't, because this is what the ones that I want to export it as. If I was to change the sequence settings, it would change it to the clip, which is a drone. So it's going to keep all the drone settings, which would be 4K. And I don't want it 4K. So I'm going to keep existing settings. Okay. So right now I got a little bit disorientated. So I like to, this is my draft presentation. This is what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to shift it. I'm just going to click it and move it back to this area. So I like to work from the right. And I'm going to put all my scrubs that I just did on the left. I'm going to do my iPhone scrub here, and I'm going to do my drone scrub here. Okay, so now whatever I'm adding here is going to get added to my draft presentation. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go look at the things that we just looked at. So my ones and my twos and my threes. Okay, so now is where I add my music. I'm just going to add this one. There you go. It's like a Thailand vibe music, but it's a bit too long. So I have edited it already. And this is where I would you just kind of DJ it up. So I make it shorter. It's pretty much the only thing I really do. And I just find gaps in the song that can be like kind of cut and condensed. Because a lot of time when you listen to music, or listen to songs, there's so many loops, there's so many cycles within a song that you can just get rid of the middle bit if it's too long. So one tip that I have for music, and this is a big kind of, I hope it's like a take home, is that music is so important for your choice of whatever you're doing, because it can hold so much power in captivating your emotion and captivating you and wanting to watch it. And so when I'm looking for music, if I'm doing a lot of like wildlife stuff, for example, most of the times I did like Paul's video, like Paul and Nicklen and SeaLagacy stuff. It's very oceany. I want the nice cinematic stuff. I want the nice, beautiful, has like some growth to it, so that I can kind of use that really powerful part of the song to just show the powerful footage. But a lot of the times that I find is that people don't use music to their advantage. And then when I say that, they'll either use this like really incredibly powerful music, but very, very standard, like consistent amount of shots. They don't change. They don't change the way their shots are. They don't change the pacing, and it's just very, very standard. And those ones are the ones that you kind of lose focus. You're like, okay, cool, I get it. The ones that really captivate you are the ones that are the ability to kind of include the music in their storytelling in a sense. And this is where you can build the momentum. You can build the majestic. You can use like the beautiful drone shots, like the really cool part of the music, and like the bears running through the ocean. Like you can really use music basically. And so my take home is music is important. Don't just like grab a song and be like shove some stuff on it. Like try and like use it, especially in like storytelling, especially in wildlife. Yeah. So this is my little take home. So I'm just going to quickly grab a song that I already did. So I can show you a bit more quickly. This is the same song. As you can see, I've just made it. Ignore what I'm showing you right now. Okay, and just copying and paste it. So this bottom area of Premiere Pro is just the audio, and this top part is your graphics, so your thing. And so right here, I don't know if it's worth like showing you the music just a little bit, but I can just show you really quickly just to get an idea. So it kind of starts slow. There's like a nice consistent pacing in it, and this is going to be useful to pace your footage. So it does that for a while, and then the critical moment that I always love is the beat drop, as the youngsters would call it. It's when the music gets very powerful, or you can use really good stuff with it. And it's coming up roughly now. So you can kind of hear it in every song. So most songs you look for is a nice kind of moment where you can, shift your storytelling, shift your pacing, or add your message that you want to show, or just add like really cool shots. So I don't know if I'm making sense, Linda. Just tell me if I'm not making sense.
Makes sense to me, but I have questions. So
okay, go.
When you finish,
shut up. I don't want to talk as much.
No. I'll have questions at the end of this. Go for it.
Oh damn it! I thought I was gonna get a break then. Okay. All right. So my music's on. I'm ready to go. I'm gonna open up my scrub, and now I'm gonna start kind of just. Oh my god, this is being so funky. Okay. I'm gonna just pretend that I'm going to make this video, but the gist is that you can just start to use the music to start pacing your music. So your shot. So I'm gonna start with like some kind of, I also realized that I just gibberishly did this. It didn't actually, okay, I need to find it now. So okay, 1 second, let me go find something else. All right, I'm just gonna find it here because I know where it is here. I'm gonna start my shot. Basically, this video, I'm gonna make it for some friends. I just got off from a trip, and I'm gonna show them some cool shots that I took from Thailand, a little like snippet of Thailand. It's gonna be like one of 4 little like 1-minute videos here and there that people, friends and family can go look for. So if you have an idea of what you want, then you're able to kind of know what to include and who's gonna look at it. So this one, I'm gonna make it like some kind of beach vibe. I'm gonna start off with some beach, and I'm gonna kind of shift to some like foresty. So I'm gonna start off with this shot. So it's just a shot of some ocean. It's just gonna glitch on me for a second. So I don't want this part, so I didn't scrub this properly. Okay, there, I want it to start there. So right now I'm gonna just, where it goes red, I'm just gonna shorten it until it gets the shot that I want. I'm gonna bring it back. And so there, where the music changes, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put something there. I'm gonna use that beat of the song to help me with my transitions. So someone asked me today that they're having very difficulties finding ways to transition. I personally don't like crossfades. The only time that I'll actually use them is the beginning and the end, just to like bring in, which I'll add it in a minute, but in a minute, sometimes it glitches when I add it. So, but they're really rarely that crossfades for me work within songs, like within the middle of videos. Sometimes they do, don't get me wrong, but for the most part, I feel like they're not needed. And if you simply use the song sometimes on the beats to make that transition, it feels a lot more natural. Now, with this being said, try not to make it predictable. So don't like always the same amount of the same beat, always have that change, and keeping them the same length. It becomes very predictable and becomes easy to kind of get distracted and not want to watch it. But for the most part, you can kind of use the music to know when you're going to make those transitions and make it smoother. For now, because the beginning, I kind of just want to start building the like, oh, like where are we? Oh, okay, we're at the beach. Okay. And then when you get that pacing, when the music kind of switches a little bit quicker, then I'm going to start to like quicken my shots. And even like quickening a shot doesn't necessarily mean, I'm going to like make it faster. I'm going to like make it really quickly. It could also be what's happening in the shot. So if there's now a lot of like, if I go from slow motion oceany boats, and now all of a sudden I'm like kayaking, which you'll see. It's like immediate, like, okay, something is changing. Like the pace of whatever I'm watching is like changing. And so with that being said, I'm just gonna, I don't know, I'm gonna pretend I'm gonna add some boats. Let's have a look. And so as you can see, when I'm pasting it, you'll have the blue audio and you'll have the blue shot. When you're pasting it, just be careful you're not covering your audio because it'll delete it. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and find where I wanted to. Where is it? Sure, let's do this little part. Again, I've already really done all this, so it's gonna be ready. I'm just gonna quickly show you what I would do. So I'm just adding, I'm gonna use that music where it changes. So here it's a little bit different. I'm gonna change my pacing. I'm building to that nice big moment that I want to really like bring in the viewers home. Okay, so pretend that I've done it all. I'm just going back to my thing that I've already done. I'm just gonna quickly show you. Okay, so this is what it looks like when I'm all done. So a good kind of way to kind of see if you're keeping consistency, which is bad or good depending on where you are in the music, in the video, is also just to like see how big your things are. If these were all the same distance all the time, it could be like, okay, like that may become a little bit predictable. I'm gonna try and like change it up a bit. So, okay, so I have the little beachy vibes. And then I'm going to change it to some bows. So you're kind of beginning to like introduce the setting. I'm setting the scene. And then I'm going to keep it up a little bit. And then I'm going to have my friend Mary looking at me. Okay, I'm trying to speed up a little bit. I've got some like footage, some boats moving. So I'm drifting, if you notice, from the really slow motion to a little bit quicker, if you can see. Just adding a little bit of variety. And now the music is changing. Okay, so now when the music is strong, I like to kind of, if I'm doing visual stuff, this is where I'd put the grand stuff. So in this case, I haven't used drone yet. And so for me, drones are what I'm using to kind of bring home the like, oh, this is like majestic, look where I am. This doesn't necessarily say that you can only use drone to like use the good part. It could just be just different from what you're already doing, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Linda?
It does make sense because I'll just throw in my own personal experience.
Okay,
yeah. On a recent trip I was on, I was trying to create a reel and, it was just simple video. So I haven't like pasted in all kinds of snippets like you did here, but as I'm preparing to do that, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to hit delete and start over based on what you were just showing me because a lot of it is predictable and there's an art form to this. And
it takes a lot of time to like find it. So like, don't be discouraged if you're like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, never mind.
That's
don't
why,
worry.
That's why you're paid the Hollywood bucks to do.
No, I wish I was paid Hollywood dollars.
All right. Okay. So
we're gonna get back. Also, one little note to add. Remember when I told you that when you're shooting in RAW, it's gonna look terrible? This is what it looks like. So this is drone RAW. It strips the colors so you can add it in later. So don't worry, I know this looks bad. So all these shots have not been color corrected yet. My Zcam, I didn't shoot RAW. I didn't shoot it RAW. And another way of saying RAW, like each camera has their own RAW settings. And so, for example, like S-Log, I think is Sony's. I haven't used Sony in a while. Drone, D-Log. Zcam is Z-Log. And so the log is referring to just like a RAW version. So it strips the data. It strips the colors for you to maintain the data, basically. Okay. So drone looks better. Okay, so now I'm in the beach area, my majesticness, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm going to try and change it to the foresty vibe. The music is still the same, so now, but I still want to keep it a little bit different. I don't want to have it all the same. I don't want to have all drone shots because that's going to get boring. So now I'm kind of wanting to like add back in that variety just to kind of maintain interest in it. Okay, so I've done that. My next step that I would do, same in photos, is please always straighten your horizons. such a distraction. It is one of my biggest pet peeves in photos and videos when people don't strain their horizon. And that's exactly the same in video. So to do this, it's really easy. You just go into your effects control. And so I have, it's kind of harder to see the horizon in this shot, but it is a little bit shaken there. So, oh, damn it, I've already done it. That's why it looks okay. Okay.
That's okay. We get the idea.
You get the idea. So you just like rotate it to what you need, and then you scale it bigger or smaller. Okay. And that's ensuring your horizon. So that's one thing to do. So then I'll do that to all my shots, make sure they all look okay. And then now I'm going to go to color correcting. So this one, again, this takes a long time to color correct, and it is an art form. People do this as a literal job. So please don't be discouraged to be like, I'm so bad at this. Like, people do this as a profession. It is hard. But there are ways to do it simply. There are ways to get around it. So hopefully I'll just show you a little bit. So now I'm going to shift to my editing. I'm just going to shift to my color, if it lets me. Oh, okay. So let's go back to our first clip. So I'm going to go into my basic color correcting. I'm just going to move this up the way. It's the same principles really as photos. You have all your different things. I'm just going to maybe play around with it. So I like just to move things around. I like to toggle it and watch it until it gets to kind of what I want it to be. And a lot of times it's not that much. Sometimes, in this case, if you're log, you'll see the difference. It's crazy. I'm just going to play around. Okay, so I'm playing around with it. I'm going to add a little bit of, not too much saturation, it's too much. Whatever, you get the gist. So I do that. And then again, for the most part, spending a day color correcting, there are a little bit of rules to do, but in this case, again, if you have the time of day, which usually I don't, or like people don't usually, they have jobs, they have things to do. So you just do a quick basic color correction, or you could do the same thing as photos. You have your S curves, you just move those around, usually make a little S. And then you do your color wheel. So this is a nice little addition, which I feel like sometimes I wish it had in photos. Which I'll show you in a minute, but you just like can change this little area. And color correcting in a video is important because it sets the tone of the whole like video. So when you're color correcting, you're not color correcting each clip individually, if that makes sense. You kind of want to maintain a consistent coloring throughout the whole video. And so underwater, for example, gets quite hard because you lose a lot of reds, you lose a lot of colors. And so that's why sometimes when you look at videos online or whatever of the ocean, it's like a little bit red, and because they're trying to maintain consistency of like the whole video, and so some shots will look more red than others, and that's because they've color corrected it as a video as a whole, if that makes sense. And this will make sense in one more minute when I just go here. So I've done that shot, for example, it's fine. Now I'm going to do the next shot. So now I'm going to go on to a thing called comparison view, and this is a nice way because now I want this to kind of look similar to this. Sometimes this tool works great. Sometimes it does a terrible job. You got to do it manually. For the most part, it's just nice to like try. So I'm going to apply a match, and it did it for me. It just basically changes the tones of your shadows and your midtones and your highlights, and it just kind of makes it a little bit the same kind of tone color. And if you want to make sure it looks okay, I kind of look at it by itself. I'm like, okay, it doesn't look that crazy. And the longer you look at these, like the longer you're coloring, the more you're like, oh my God, like it all looks terrible. I'm so done with this. Walk away, come back to it afterwards. Because you do get it's hard to stare at it for so long and not be blinded by it. But anyway, so basically I'm going to do that through all my video. I'm going to color correct all my stuff. I'm going to use that little tool to just try and maintain that consistent balance to it. And then once that's done, which I will pretend that I have done it, ta-da! So ignore the little colors that are here. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, so now I have all the colors. Oh, I did not do that. There we go. Now I have the colors done. Kind of looks similar. There's a little bit of a red hue in it, kind of maintaining it. So now that I've done my drone, it looks a little bit better than it did.
Yes.
Over here. Also, my drone actually that I use in this, I think it's broken. It's very, very noisy, and I need to actually send it back to DJ. So this shot is a bit noisy, and don't worry, I can see that. You'll see it too, so I'm not blinded. But it is quite noisy. That there are tools nowadays. Like there's one called oh my god, what's it called? It is the Topaz, the sharpen stuff. There's a video one, and I haven't actually used it a lot yet, but there are tools that can help with this. And know one of my clients is trying to like figure it out as well. But yeah, for the most part, sometimes you have to sacrifice some shots that you love because it just doesn't look good. And that's the most painful thing to ever do. Okay, so I've color corrected all my stuff. My next thing I want to do is I want to warp it. So this is where that little neat tool comes to play, where like if it's a little bit blurry, if it's a little bit shaky, I can maybe fix it. So I want to show you, for example, this. I'm going to go back to that non-colored one. Sorry, it's just freaking out on me. 1 second. It is not liking this Zoom call. Okay, so I'm gonna warp this one. So basically, I'm just gonna go into my effects now. At the top, I'm in my color. Now I'm done with my color. I'm gonna go into my effects, and I'm going to just simply look for warp stabilizer, and there it is. And all I do is I just simply pop it on top, and then I'll analyze. And it'll take a little bit, sometimes depending on how long it takes. This is just your little warp stabilizer here. So I'm gonna add that to some of my shots. This one too. One thing to note is if you have changed this, and then you'll have to go back to ask a question.
I was going to ask you, do you have to apply it to every sequence or every?
I do sometimes, because there are such little things that you don't usually notice that will make a difference. Not make a difference, but will just help. So I will throw it on everything just to see what it looks like, which you'll see in a minute, in a second. It won't work for all of them. Completely won't work for some of them. And that's when you have to decide if that shakiness is something you're willing to live with. Sometimes it works. Sometimes, like, depending what you're doing, like if you're doing some kind of action thing, you're on a boat and it's shaky, like there's a lot more forgiveness. Like obviously you're going to be shaky, you're on a boat, it's like action packed, like you don't really need to stabilize it. But again, it depends the situation, and depends if you're okay with what it looks like. So this one, so they're both done. This one, hey, that looks cool. It worked in this one. It's a lot more smoother. This one I haven't done it yet, but so it's very smooth. This one, however, I tried it before. See how it's very glitchy? It's not working. I did not enjoy that. So sometimes you can play around with the amount of warp that you added to it. So you can either make it less and see if that'll help. No, it's still there. You can make it more, go to 90%. Oh, just stabilizing. No, it didn't work either. You can see it jittery. And sometimes when you're on Reels, now that you know, when you see what warp is doing, you can tell when people have done it. And you can tell when people have done it where it shouldn't necessarily maybe have been done. Or where they're like, you know what, it was so bad, but I need this shot. I'm going to sacrifice this little bit of warp and just accept it. But it's a neat thing. Once you start knowing what people are doing, you can see them a lot better. So in this case, it didn't work. Don't like it. I'm going to click my warp stabilizer and I'm going to delete it. And in this shot, it's waves. I'd probably just leave it, or I'd try and find a new shot. In this case, for the sake of this video, I'm going to pretend that was right. Okay, so I've warped everything. Pretend. One thing to note is, so when you're adding the shots and the footage, sometimes you'll find that, this is actually too slow. I want to actually make this a little bit quicker or a little bit slower. And this is where you can speed it up and slow it down. Now I will add, when you are slowing down, this is where the whole frame rate comes to mind. So if you've shot at a low frame rate, 24 frames a second, and you tried to reduce it, you will not be able to reduce it a lot, like minimal, because you've shot really low. And you'll be able to see it just like pauses. There are a little bit of tools that you can kind of play around with that'll help with that. But the bottom line is that if you've shot a low and you want to really slow it down, it's not going to work. In this case, I shot slow motion, so I do have a little bit of wiggle room. So if I wanted to go even slower than 100%, usually I tend to stick around 70. It's like the lowest I'll go, unless I know that I shot a really high frame rate and I can lower it. Without trying to be too complicated, the amount that you can lower it will also depend on the frame rate of your sequence that you're exporting it at. So in this case, say that I'm exporting at 30 frames a second, and say that I shot at 120, I can lower it substantial amount, so like 75 around there. If I am exporting it, especially like 30 frames a second, and I have a 60 frames, and I can now it changes the amount that I can reduce it, if that makes sense. I hope.
So it almost seems like you should shoot at a slower frame rate just to give.
It does, but then remember when I said that it's a lot of space, it's a lot more time to edit. So now you have to now use all this. A lot of programs can't process 4K as much, and so this is where you have to really know what you want to do for. If you're like, I want this shot in slow motion, I'm definitely gonna use it in slow motion. And even for this, I'm like, I want to have slow motion waves, I want all this, so I'm gonna shoot it in slow motion. And like on film crews, and I'm like, now also with around them and they're shooting, I also was the same mind of like, I'm just gonna always shoot slow because I can just speed it up and I can lower it. And they're like, no, there literally is no point in spending the amount of time that you'll need for storage, the amount of time that you're gonna take for editing, if you know you're not going to slow it down. And in some cases, it's worth it to not.
It becomes more of an economical call at this point.
An economical and time. And like figuring out like how you're going to do it. But in this case, I do enjoy slow motion, so I do tend to kind of shoot that way. But
so,
anyway,
so how many other steps are there from this?
Okay, I'm almost done. Am I running out of time?
Just a little bit, but that's okay. I'm not worried about the time. But I was trying.
I'm basically done. Honestly, I'm basically done.
I'm trying to figure out. Oh my gosh, this is not something I'm going to be able to do.
No, this is the opposite of what I was trying to do. You have to, don't be intimidated. I've been doing this for like 7 years, so it's like pretty easy for me to go plop, 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 plop. But it sounds intimidating, but the more you do it, the more you practice. It's just like photography. You guys spend time and doing it, and now you love it. It's the same thing. You just have to dip your toe in. Once you start dipping your toe in, you'll
finish the video so that I can ask these other selfish.
Okay. I'm truly
personal use.
The only thing I wanted to add was like when you're doing warp stabilizer, this is what I just mentioned. When you do change those speeds, warp stabilizer won't work when you just plonk it onto that. And so a way to get around that is you right click it and you create a nest, and you just call it whatever. And it basically just like creates this like bubble around this clip that you can then add more effects onto it. So now it'll work if I do that. And if I want to change anything within that clip, I just have to double click it and it'll take me to its own little timeline of this clip. So now I can like edit back to like what I want it to do, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yes, hopefully. Okay, I'm just gonna come here back to my original one. Where did you go? I should know, like happy. Okay, so basically I've done it. So now I've warp stabilized it. I've done everything. I'm gonna go look through it, see if I like it or not. Oh, it's went really quiet there. Okay, and so basically, yeah, cool. I'm happy with it. I'm just gonna export it. So I press in and I press out. I go to my projects and I export it. And this is like pretty standard. So I'm not even gonna spend much time doing this. You just kind of change your name. Maybe this isn't standard. I'm gonna go through this really quickly. So this is like your format. So this is basically a compression. It's similar to like what programs you're using to compress it. This is a standard one. Keep it at that. And the preset. So usually I'm exporting, depending on what it is. Again, if you're going to export this in 4K, but you're adding it to an Instagram story, do not do that. It's just going to compress it. And it's going to look terrible. You're like, why is this so blurry? I don't understand. This is so good quality. It's because they compressed it, and their compression is not quite yet top notch. So you can do high quality 1080, or depending on where it is. Yeah. Also, like if you're going to be shooting video, you're in a really unique place, and you're like, I maybe want to sell my footage, then yes, always shoot at 4K or higher. Companies don't use lower things anymore, unless it's like really, really unique behavior or something you're looking at. Another thing I wanted to say, let me think. You can add a little crossfade. So right here, I just added like a little crossfade beginning. And the same here, you go to your effects and you just type in like your cross stuff, your crossfades, and it's all kind of here, cross dissolve. And so I'm adding that in. I'll add it to the end, for example. And that's usually where I'll only really add my effects. There are times when I'm like, this just feels wrong. I played with my video. I played with my music. I played with it. It just feels weird. I'll try and put it in a crossfade and see if it changes it. Sometimes it helps. Sometimes it just doesn't look good. And that's where you have to either look for different shots or change your music around. Okay, I think I'm done.
So the question Mika had was, do you always pick music before you have the final footage?
Like before I scrub?
Well, she says she's saying she thinks that she'd have a hard time knowing what to pick before she has a feel of the footage.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this is like my personal way of doing it. For me, when I'm scrubbing a video, so a lot of times for work, like I'll know what my point is. I'll know what I'm trying to say. Like if it's a campaign, I know what the intention, what kind of client I'm working with, so how they kind of usually make their videos. So I know the feeling, what I want. And then after I scrub the footage, I know what kind of stuff they have. And so then I will go look for a song and I can start visualizing it. But that doesn't mean that's the answer. You can 100%, like documentary stuff will actually like make a video, make the thing without any music. And I've done that before. It's a very different process. And that's also beneficial because you get to just play with like the timing of your stuff and without having any influence from music. So it's not the be all end all form. It's just the way that I do it, but you can definitely play with what you have and then choose a song.
Okay. Kathy, her question is, did you go to film school? How did you get to be what you're doing?
I did not. I'm actually a biologist. I'm actually a wildlife biologist. For my undergrad, and then I did a postgrad in environmental visual communication, and then after that I went to intern for SeaLagacy. I kind of always knew I wanted to be into video. I wanted to be documentary. I was going to apply to do a master's in BBC documentary filmmaking, and I declined that to work for SeaLagacy. I know it's crazy background, but so no, I was torn a little bit during my postgrad. And then just working as an intern and kind of winging it yourself, you learn a lot of stuff. When I was working with SeaLagacy, I was the only video editor for almost 2 years there. And so I got to learn a lot of stuff quickly. Don't worry, like people, like you will shoot such crap sometimes, but it matters like the 2 seconds, like the 2-second shots. Like, so don't look at your footage and be like, this looks terrible. Like if you can just grab 1 or 2 shots in there to make a video, that's what you're doing. And so that's what video editing is. So don't worry about if you're like discouraged with some of this stuff.
Okay, you just made my day because yesterday I have a little bitty pond. And when I say little, people, it's very small. I made it myself. And I've been watching this neon skimmer dragonfly for a week now. He perches on the specific trellis I have. And every day I go out there and he's there. It's just the weirdest thing. But yesterday he found a lady friend and they buzzed around and they did their dance. And she laid her eggs in my pond. And I didn't know what to do because I could not get a shot of it because of lighting and stuff. But I turned on my video and I have like footage and some of it's perfect. Some of it's not. And it's shaky because I'm holding a very large lens, which you just can't get, I can't steady that with the 500 lens. And so I've watched this video several times. I'm like, this is crap. This is just terrible. But what you just said was, I just need to extract the 3 or 4 seconds and then fill it in with other stuff.
Yes.
So I think that just
like 90% of stuff you will shoot is going to be blurry and shaky. And you're going to be like, oh, you're going to miss moments. You're going to be like, oh my God. But everyone does them. Like,
okay, well, you make me feel better because I'm thinking my video skills are so terrible, but that just makes me a little bit happier. So thank you. Okay, so the next thing, a lot of our clients, because I kind of know some of them, you said, they just give you your footage. So it's on you to pick the music. Is that?
Yes. So depending on, again, what I'm doing, again, there's a lot of documentary people that will like have professional like composers do it. And so in that case, you kind of make a filler song just so you can get a sense of how you're building things and you give it to them to do. But for me, I just get everything from scratch. So whatever you shoot, including all the blurry stuff, and then I have to scrub it, go through it, create everything from scratch. So editors don't get enough credit I find sometimes.
I know, well, because that hurts my head. That's a lot of pressure for someone to say, here, take my stuff and make something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person that's videoing, like I do my own stuff, I kind of know what the story I want to tell. So that's the way I would video it. But for someone else to say, here's all our stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm betting you get lots and lots of terabytes of stuff to extract a 20-minute video or whatever else.
You start to like learn their style. You start to know what they're looking for. You start to know what music they're gonna like, and so the more you work with them, the more you know what they're after. You create drafts. Sometimes you're like, I don't like this. Sometimes like, this is great. Yeah, it's a lot of back and forth.
I'm going to wrap this up with one more question. Lisa has a question let's see. Lisa wants to know, can you provide us some tips on shooting, such as focusing and time of day?
Time of day, the same as photography, golden hour. So golden hour and dawn.
Yeah. Okay.
Lighting, it's like
blue hour. Yeah.
Blue hour. Of course, sometimes it gets a little bit darker then, so you have to just watch your ISO and your lights.
Yeah.
And focusing.
Yeah.
Well, kind of what I mentioned before, try and learn and practice to manually focus it and get really good at like tracking your subjects, kind of knowing how much to scroll, how much not. Otherwise, you're going to have that continuous if you're doing an autofocus.
Right.
It's a skill. It takes time to learn.
So somebody like me that just has a regular, well, now I have a mirrorless, I have DSLR too, but what kind of lens would you slap on there? You know, I'm not doing this professionally. I'm just trying to create.
It depends what I mean,
I guess it goes back to what you would use for photography.
If you have a long lens, like you experience, it's very hard to maintain, to not make it shaky unless you're on a tripod. So if you're long lensing, always use a tripod or something, because it's just very hard to hold it. And if you're like, crap, I don't have a tripod, I have nothing, this is where you can maybe slow down, so increase your frame rate, so you can slow it down a little bit and then warp it. That maybe you can save a little bit of shots like that, but ideally as stable as you can. So on a tripod, my go-tos, usually it's my Canon one, so I have a 17-40, a 50. I believe on my camera I have like a 12-40, I think, because I don't even know precisely what I have, but whatever you have, it's just knowing that, you know, the wider you are, the more ability you have to kind of to handhold it. The longer lens, the more it's going to be a bit shaky.
All right, one last question, because Mika is one of my favorite people. Mika is a macro photographer. She does a lot of insects. She goes for the teeny tiny little subjects. Her question is about lighting in dark situations. Any ideas?
In this case, if this is going to be something you want to do, that's when you'd have to kind of look into the cameras that specialize in low light. I know there's a lot of Sonys that nowadays are like, you're like really good in low light, and that's where like they have their like native ISOs and their it's gonna get complicated. But lighting, you can do like external lighting the same way you would do like set up like your natural shots. And
that works for her because she's a Sony alpha female photographer. I don't know if I said that right, Mika, but she's definitely one of the Sony users. All right, Chelsie, I know this was painful for you. I know it was. I don't know.
I hope someone learned something from it at least. And again, there's so much to talk about. You can do this for I
did. So it only matters that I did, so that it doesn't matter. But there are nice comments in here for you, and I'll share that with you. But I want to thank you for doing this, because one, I know you don't have the time. You did not have the time to do this, and you squeezed it in. And I so appreciate it. I'm so looking forward to meeting you in person. I promise you it'll happen before you realize it. And I may not give you that much notice so that you don't run away from me. All right. I'm going to point out to you guys, if you are interested in Premiere Pro, I had a speaker. If you go to the YouTube channel, look for Session 41, and his name was Andrew Vaughn. And Andrew is a film student out of Houston. And so he did a presentation called Introduction to Premiere Pro for Beginners. So you can look for that. Chelsie, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're looking for her, you can find her on Instagram. She doesn't post very often. What's that about?
I don't.
I know.
Oh, God, I know I need to.
I know this is the beat up Chelsie segment, but you can find her there, and you can also connect with her through her website. So chelsiexb.com. Go take a sampling, take a stroll through her website.
Yeah, say hi. I'd love it.
Yeah, say hi. So, all right, next week, wildlife conservation photographer Karen Salcedo will be here to present Giving Voice to Wildcats and Song Dogs through Storytelling. And until next week, go out and create something beautiful and hope that we see you again soon.